Hello and welcome to the In a Second History channel. Every day, I share with you important events that shaped world history, all in just 1 minute. And once a week, we explore the lives of legendary figures who made a lasting impact on history. This is part of our special series, Legends of History. In today's episode, we'll be talking about one of the most powerful leaders in the world, Genghis Khan. Enjoy the video. The mid-12th century. The wind blows across the endless steppes of Asia. There is no established order in these lands. No government, no central authority. Mongolia, the chaotic homeland of warring nomadic tribes. Each group lives by its own rules, constantly fighting, gaining power through betrayals and raids. At the beginning of the 13th century, the territory of modern-day Mongolia was divided among several different nomadic tribes, such as the Tatars, Merkits, Naimans, Karaites, and Mongols. These tribes constantly attacked each other, forming and breaking alliances. There was an order where everyone was an enemy to one another. Blood feuds, slave trading, raids, and plundering were part of daily life. The strong ruled, diplomacy was usually achieved through marriage alliances. Amidst this chaos, in 1162, Temüjin was born. His father, Yesugei, was the chief of the Borjigin clan, one of the Mongol tribes. Yesugei was a powerful leader who instilled fear and commanded respect. Before Temüjin was even born, Yesugei made a political move by marrying Hoelun, a girl from a neighboring tribe. This marriage was not just about love or starting a family. It was an outright alliance. One day, Yesugei had visited a tribe from the Taichud clan with his young son, Temüjin. However, this tribe was related to the Taichodes, whom Yesugei had previously defeated in battle, causing them significant losses. Revenge was served cold. Yesugei was poisoned with his meal. He fell ill on his way home and died within a few days. Everything changed after Yesugei's death. The tribal unity that had existed under his leadership dissolved immediately with his passing. Temüjin was only 9 years old. His family, his mother, Hoelun, and his siblings was expelled from the tribe. According to Mongol law, a leader's power was not inherited through his family, but based on his immediate authority. And when Yesugei died, he left behind no strong male heir to carry on his power. What was even worse, the family was not just abandoned, but completely forsaken. The hunting animals and food sources were removed from the area they lived in. The members of the tribe refused to go near their settlement. Thus, Temüjin's family was left to survive in the Mongol steppe. From this point, Temüjin's family survived by eating rats, roots, and grass, drinking water from streams. But during this period of hardship, Temüjin's character was forged. His intelligence, strategic thinking, and leadership skills were developed as he fought for survival. The discipline and determination of his mother, Hoelun, played a significant role in shaping him during these years. After his father's death, Temüjin and his family, abandoned by their tribe, began to live almost like ghosts in the Mongol steppes. They had neither food nor a tribe to rely on. His mother, Hoylan, fought an extraordinary battle to keep her children alive. The years spent surviving on wild fruits, fish, and roots sharpened Temujin's survival instincts. However, these years of isolation also matured him early. Temujin now had to fight not only hunger, but also the tensions within his own family. The conflicts he had with his stepbrother, Bektar, were growing day by day. Bektar was killed by Temujin and his real brother, Kasar, because he was unfair in sharing food. This event marked his first major leadership decision, ruthless but survival-oriented. In the Mongol steppes, it was power, not mercy, that commanded respect. As the years passed, Temujin grew. He was now a young man with a dream, to one day have his own people. One of the greatest supporters during this time was Boorta, who would eventually become his life partner. Thanks to an agreement with her family, Temujin married Boorta. This marriage was not only personal, but also a strategic move, because Boorta's tribe, the Ongirat, was a powerful connection. However, happiness did not last long. Shortly after their wedding, Boorta was kidnapped in a raid organized by the Merkits. This attack was a deep wound for Temujin. However, it also led to him forming his first political alliance, organizing a coordinated attack against his enemies. His old allies, Tural Khan, the leader of the Karite tribe, who had been his father's ally, and his childhood friend, Kamukha, came to his aid. Together, they attacked the Merkits and rescued Boorta. This operation showed that Temujin was no longer alone and that he could sit at the same table as great leaders. But this journey would not be easy. Despite being very young, he was betrayed by the Taichu tribe and captured. A wooden collar was put around his neck. His escape marked another turning point. This escape brought not only his physical freedom, but also a mental break. He was no longer just a young man struggling to survive. He was a leader fighting for his freedom and gradually shaping his own destiny. This period was the first time Temujin felt like a leader in his life. His loyal friends, especially Bogorchu and Selme, stood by his side. These two would later become some of Genghis Khan's most trusted commanders. Temujin learned to reward them and never forget loyalty. The wind of the steppes was now blowing in a different direction. A young leader was being born. Temujin was no longer just trying to survive. He was taking action to shape his future, and this was just the beginning. The friendship between Temujin and Kamukha in his youth is one of the most significant turning points in Mongol history. Both of them were very close friends at a young age. At that time, the relationships between Turkish and Mongol tribes were generally based on intertribal alliances and enmities. Temujin and Kamukha came from very similar social backgrounds. While Temujin was on the path to becoming a strong leader for his tribe's future, Kamukha was also a young man following the same path. This friendship actually began with the desire to understand each other and combine their strengths. Both were growing up in a harsh and ruthless environment, but the trust they had in each other allowed them to unite their powers and claim a bigger leadership. However, over time, the relationship between the two began to change. From a very young age, Temujin was forced to constantly defend the rights of his family and tribe. After his father's death, many people wanted his family to take control of the tribe, but Temujin was always determined to follow his own path. This situation also created difficulties in his relationship with Kamukha. Kamukha began to see Temujin's growing power as a threat. The two friends started to have disagreements over their leadership claims and management styles. At one point, the friendship between Temujin and Kamukha came to an end. and they each chose different paths. Jamukha, on one hand, defended the rights of his own tribe, while Temüjin had a much broader perspective, aiming to unite more lands and people. Temüjin sought to form alliances with different tribes to expand his territory, while Jamukha tried to establish his leadership in a more traditional and narrow domain. This marked the first signs of a rift between them. It was also a major turning point for Mongol society, as Temüjin was beginning to lay the foundations of his future great empire. Eventually, the friendship between Temüjin and Jamukha turned into a rivalry. This rivalry deepened the contrasts between the two men and led to conflict. Jamukha made several attempts to overthrow Temüjin, even forming a coalition against him by influencing some of the tribal leaders around Temüjin. However, due to Temüjin's leadership skills and strategic intelligence, these alliances would not last long, and Temüjin managed to strengthen his own power and defeat his enemies every time. Their first major conflicts occurred after the end of their friendship. Jamukha began to openly threaten Temüjin, and soon after, Temüjin prepared to respond to these threats. At the height of these conflicts, Temüjin's strategic intellect and leadership abilities would propel him from just being a tribal leader to someone on the path to building a great empire. During this period, Temüjin's strategy of cutting off his enemies' connections and forming alliances set him apart. Jamukha, on the other hand, wanted to counter Temüjin's growing power by gathering a large following. However, Temüjin successfully defended against his old friend's attacks and eventually managed to completely neutralize Jamukha. The victories and experiences Temüjin gained during this period increased his influence in the Mongol lands and eventually led to him becoming the leader who would lay the foundations for the Mongols' united empire. His rivalry with Jamukha demonstrated how strong a leader Temüjin was in terms of intertribal relations, strategy, and the process of state building. The hostility with Jamukha was one of the first major tests of Temüjin's political and military intelligence, and thus Temüjin began to be recognized not only as a warrior but also as the ruler of the future. In the next chapter, we'll dive deep into how Temüjin transformed from a tribal leader into Genghis Khan, the architect of one of the greatest empires in history. We'll uncover the powerful alliances he forged, the military and political reforms that reshaped Mongol society, and the legendary Yasa legal code that united the steppe under one rule. From the fierce battles against the Jin dynasty in China to the brutal campaign against the Khwarezmian Empire, prepare to witness the rise of a conqueror who changed the course of history. Don't miss it. The empire was only just beginning.